joke was a little bit over the line, but he had about 25 minutes to think about it. And he sat there, and the best he can come up with, instead of an apology, is to come up there and say, "Oh, I'm trying to be God's vessel, and I have to, I have to protect my family, and I have to protect this person and that person." It was just so no, and then talking about how he wants to be a vessel of love. Meanwhile, he just hit this guy, and everybody's cheering for him, and he's crying. It just, to me, it just showed me that he just seemed like a delusional and pathetic. And I never really thought he was that good an actor. And when I saw that, I said, oh, now I understand why he's not that good an actor.
Ooh, you are not mincing any words, but I guess that's why you have the job that you do. I have to ask you also, the fact that he did not apologize to Rock himself also says a lot.
Yeah, I mean, that's the guy to apologize to, It's a shame because we've all been in situations where we've done something wrong, and we can all look back sometimes when we know, like, we look back on how we could have made it right, and sometimes we do, but probably most times we don't. And he had that opportunity there. It was just sitting there, and he didn't take it. And it's just bad. And what I mean to say is it's why I think it's his limitations as an actor is that, when you see so many performances of his are kind of sentimental, and then you see this and you say, oh, I get it. He's sentimental because it's like he can't get off of himself, and his empathy is really a kind of narcissism. I mean, he's a pleasant guy to be around. I interviewed him once. He's not like a bad guy, but he just made a mistake, and this is going to be following him now. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to follow him for the rest of his life. I mean, if he went out today and did a press conference, he wouldn't get the audience that he, would have had for that speech. And so, I don't know, it's a shame to see a guy fall apart.
Yeah, it says a lot about his character, I think. And Mick, that is being reflected in some of our Facebook comments. Candy says, ban Will Smith. There are a lot of calls today for his Oscar to be taken away from him. What do you have to say about an actor's personal life and how that bleeds over to their professional skills?
Well, I'm totally, I don't care about anybody's personal life, and I really don't care. So I wouldn't take the Oscar away from him. I mean, I wouldn't have given it to him in the first place. I didn't think he was that good in the movie, but he was, he got voted the Oscar, and that's fine with me. I'm kind of radical this way, though. I mean, I really don't care about like anybody's personal life with regard to, their art. And some people draw the line. Some people don't, won't like a movie if they belong to a different political party of the person, much less like whatever crimes they might have committed. So I wouldn't throw him out. For me, I would not throw him out of anything. And also, too, I mean, it's understandable why he got angry. It's not like he just was sitting there and out of nowhere just decided to hit somebody. It's not, in a human sense, it's rather understandable. But he shouldn't have done it, and he should have apologized afterwards.
Yeah, you can see kind of both sides of the argument. And David writes in to say, Chris isn't pressing charges, nor did he know about his wife's illness. He took the high road. Most people didn't know about her illness. Smith is very immature. So echoing some of what you have said as well. Mm-hmm. I do want to ask you, had there not been a slap, what would have been the most memorable part of the Oscars? Because it sounds like there were people online saying that they didn't pay attention until the slap happened.
Yeah, well, I thought it was a very boring show until the slap happened. In fact, I was, you know how journalism works. My job was to write an article about it, and I had no idea what I was going to write because it was just so boring. And then suddenly this happened, which was the opposite of boring. If it weren't for this, I'd say that the nice things to take from it were, I mean, Jessica Chastain, who's done one great performance after another, winning the Academy Award is really good news. I really like that Ariana DeBose won, and I think that it's fun that now that role must be magic because now 2 Academy Awards for the exact same role over 60 years. And then the guy from Coda, that's kind of a sweet thing too. I mean, I like the movie. I wasn't crazy about it, but I have nothing against it winning. I think it's kind of pleasant. It made people happy.
Yeah, and that brings me to our next question, because there you see on screen lots of representation happening. The past few years, there has been so much talk about hashtag Oscars so white. Did you notice that representation be played out in the awards ceremony?
Well, sure, and also in the nominations. I mean, this has really been, this has been the story since really the beginning of the century, beginning of the millennium. What really needs to happen now is Asian representation and Hispanic representation. I think that those are the two things where those are the two areas where there could be more inclusion. I think where there's work to be done, put it that way.
Yeah, well said. Connie Arthur writes in, by the way, to say, I didn't watch it. I watched the video, and she thinks it's acceptable. It sounds like a lot of people are doing the backtracking after all the hubbub online, certainly. Not to mention, the Oscars did have better ratings this year, I read, compared to last year.
Well, last year was just so depressing. I mean, actually, one of the things that was noticeable in a sense is that it was normal. It was a normal Oscars compared to last year, where it was everybody in ball gowns sitting on a couch in their living room. It was so depressing. So this is, I think that the end of COVID, it comes so slowly that it's just it's so incremental, one thing at a time. But yesterday, if we were thinking about it, marked yet another step in the direction of this period of our lives being over.
Mick, I know we only have about a minute and a half left or so, but I do want to ask you, it seems like the trends in how we watch movies are different. You mentioned CODA, and certainly the streaming trend is here to stay.
Yeah, I think it's here to stay. I think it's especially here to stay for movies that are made for adults, which would be, the movies that aren't depending on a big screen, like big science fiction movies, that kind of thing. I think a lot of people would feel happy to watch movies at home. Also, too, because, in the old days, the best you can get is like a 24-inch screen. And these days you can watch movies on an 8-foot screen. It's just huge, and basically simulate the experience of the theater in your own house, but without having to sit through coming attractions or having somebody behind you talking on the cell phone. So I think that streaming to some degree is going to be an ongoing presence, but I think people still will like to go to the movies, and especially younger people who live at home and want to get away from their parents or that kind of thing.
And maybe older people who want to get away from whoever they happen to be living with, have a nice bucket of popcorn. Hey, before we go, I do want to give you some props, because you told me that all of your Oscar predictions came true, right?
Yeah, the only one I'm not sure which way I would have gone if I wrote about it was Jessica Chastain, because there's a whole thing there. Kristen Stewart was the on paper winner, even though I thought she was terrible in that movie, and I thought Jessica Chastain was great, but great, and it doesn't make any difference usually. But yeah, I was right about everything. I wish I would have published a list this time. I was just so embarrassed last year because I was wrong about everything.
Oh no!
Yeah,
we can try again for next year. Mick LaSalle, always a pleasure having you here.
It's a pleasure being here.
All right, check out his column in the San Francisco Chronicle. Okay, we will be right back with UCSF infectious disease specialist Dr. Peter Chin Hong to talk about the possibility of older Americans receiving a second booster shot. Don't worry, the show continues on Facebook Live. Stay with us. All right, we are in commercial break 1. Thank you, everybody, for staying with us. I am scrolling through some of our Facebook comments, and wowzers, we have a lot of comments from all of you. It seems overwhelmingly, based off of my scientific assessment right now, that you all are, for the most part, disappointed in the way that Will Smith behaved. Some more shout outs. Pam writes in to say, shouldn't Chris Rock have known why she was bald? Augusta writing in to say he knew she had a health condition, so this person claiming that he knew. Let us know what you think. Also, if you had any predictions, did you watch the Oscars? Also, I love hearing where you are tuning in from, because a lot of times we have viewers from outside the Bay Area as well. It's neat to hear from people all across the country and certainly across the world. Coming up next, we are talking about boosters and all things COVID, so make sure you get those questions in. We will try to get to as many of them as we can. Karen writes in to say, bad joke, horrible, violent reaction. Yeah, that's, I think, a legitimate question many people are asking right now is, What does this say about violence in America? Will Smith's son had tweeted that this is how we do it, not verbatim, but essentially saying that that is how his family or his father chose to react to this situation. Is that setting an example, for example, to younger generations or to people who might be watching? When you have that platform, do you have a responsibility to behave a certain way, react a certain way, and set an example? All right, we are about 30 seconds away from coming back on ABC7. Please get those comments in. Also, if you are on social media, my Facebook page is Dion Lim TV. That is me on all social media platforms. Hello to Samson and to Paula also. You are right, it is illegal to assault a person. End of story. That's what she says. Here we go, 10 seconds back. We appreciate you staying with us. Americans ages 50 and older could soon be eligible for a second COVID-19 booster shot. The FDA is expected to authorize another round of the vaccine as soon as tomorrow. So joining us live with his insight and the news and the other big COVID headlines of the day is a familiar face, UCSF infectious disease specialist, Dr. Peter Chin Hong. Doctor, welcome back.
Thanks, Dion. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Well, right away, let's talk about this because the FDA could authorize yet another round of these booster shots for people over the age of 50. This could come as soon as tomorrow. Do you think it's necessary, and why for this particular age group? I feel like usually the recommendation is for those who are at higher risk, who are older.
Those are great questions, Dion. I think, this is a could do it rather than you should do it kind of recommendation. So it's going to be very confusing, I think, to people. But I'll tell you what the data is. And oftentimes the way we interpret data and science is based on values. So I think that's kind of where you'd see the recommendation fall. So the data is only very slim right now. It all comes from Israel. And it's how does the fourth shot hold up against the surge? So when they look at a healthcare workers study, they show that a fourth shot, and that's younger people, 40s, 50s, some older, when you got a fourth shot, did nothing really in terms of 3 versus 4 in preventing breakthrough infection. Nobody was hospitalized. When they looked at an older population, more than 500,000 people, ages 60 to 100, they found that when they got 4 shots, a few more people avoided going to the hospital and died at a lower probability than those who got 3 shots only. So the numbers was something like, I think I wrote it down, 233 died in the 3-shot group and 92 died in the 4-shot group. But the percentage was something in the order of 0.03% versus 0.1%. At the end of the day, I think the older you are, the more likely you're going to get a bang for the buck by the 4th shot. But it's probably most important to get 3 shots. And only about 40% of Americans eligible have gotten even 3 shots.
Wow, I'm really glad you broke down those numbers with percentages as well, because it's enough to make your mind spin. There's so much information regarding this 4th shot. And what stuck out to me was that the decision to make those 4th doses available, now that's going to be bypassing independent groups of scientific advisors for both the FDA and the CDC. Is that normal? Are they fast-tracking this?
It's not normal per se, but because it doesn't fall in terms of a recommendation, I think they just want to allow people the flexibility to get it. And personally, there have been tons of people asking me, could they get the 4th shot? It's certainly not going to be harmful. In the Israeli data, it looks really, really good in terms of the safety profile. And it wouldn't preclude you from getting another kind of vaccine later on, because in the background, people are working on a universal COVID vaccine. We hope to have a better vaccine by the fall or winter that will be more pan-sensitive to any variant that will come. But in the meantime, I think some ways of thinking about it might be if you want to booster your antibodies to even prevent a breakthrough infection, you can do that by having additional shot. But certainly the 3 shots do really well at preventing serious disease, hospitalization, and death, at least from the CDC data in all age groups.
This may seem like a basic question, but we continue to get it every time we speak to each other. A viewer writes in to Cuss, this person's name. Tell us about the side effects that are being noted in older adults who had the booster. This particular individual did not get a 3rd. So here we are talking about 4th. You know, what can you offer to reassure this person that there is safety involved?
Yeah, so at least for the mRNA vaccines, which are the ones that will be authorized, we anticipate for the emergency use authorization for the 4th shot. We don't expect anything different. In older individuals, very low risk of myocarditis or heart inflammation, the same side effects as the other vaccines. In fact, because it's not coming 1-2 like the initial 2, you're not going to get as much fevers, chills, muscle aches, etc., because it's coming several months after. So it will be authorized for those who've received their last shot at least 4 months prior, and that's based on the Israeli data. But again, nothing really statistically significant in terms of getting the shot from what we know about. It's not that people are getting more effects. They're at least the same, if not better in some.
Thank you for breaking that down. One last question for you, one that I think I personally am curious about, because it feels like a lot of people are still getting COVID. You know, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki, Lin-Manuel Miranda didn't go to the Oscars last night because of it. I mean, how likely is it from this BA.2 variant? What are your predictions going forward?
I think that it's more transmissible, so about 30 to 50% more transmissible than BA.1 or the regular Omicron, but not causing more serious disease from a few studies so far, and not really being different to our immune system from the regular Omicron. What it means in real terms is if you weren't infected before, and we get increasing cases due to BA.2, and of course it's spring break time now, the strategies you used before may not protect you now, but people who already got breakthrough infection, there's a study in Denmark, you can get reinfected, but it's going to be a lower probability than people who didn't get infected in the first place. And probably the most likely group to get infected, of course, are the unvaccinated, unexposed previously.
That's a great note to end on. Dr. Peter Chin Hong, once again, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks so much, Dion.
Okay, and we will be right back with ABC7 News race and social justice reporter Julian Glover. He's talking about how the White House is now addressing root causes of appraisal discrimination and the Bay Area family that was part of that discussion. Stay with us. Okay, we are in break 2. Hi, everybody. I appreciate everyone for weighing in. Certainly everyone still commenting on Chris Rock and Will Smith, but we are getting some questions. Vivian writing in to ask about her diabetic 17-year-old and the 4th booster to protect him, something that I will pass along to Dr. Chin Hong. We see you, we hear you on Facebook. We really appreciate all of the engagement. And to Cuss, who I read the question out to our doctor for, says thank you, so you are very welcome. I'm glad we were able to address your concerns. So once again, we are live on Facebook right now, and we encourage everybody, if you have questions about any of the topics that we just discussed, not only leave them here, we will try to get to them perhaps in our next edition of Getting Answers every day at 3 o'clock. But I also want to look ahead to my colleagues segment, which is in just about 2 minutes or so, 1 minute, I'm told, with Julian Glover. Many of you have seen his now viral story of the Bay Area family that had their house appraised, and they are a black family. They were shocked at how low the appraisal came in at. When they posed as a white family, that appraisal came in about $500,000 higher. So certainly that story got the cogs in gear. It really got a lot of attention nationwide. Julian just was at the White House talking with the task force about the work they've done across the country. Let us know your thoughts on house appraisals, and if you ever feel like you have been discriminated against when it comes to housing of any sort, when it comes to purchasing or rentals. Okay, we are 10 seconds out. Here we go. Get those questions ready, and we'll be back with Julian. Welcome back, everybody. Well, just over a year ago, race and social justice reporter Julian Glover shed light on a housing discrimination story that has since taken the country by storm. You may remember the Austin family. Here they are from Marin City. They spent $400,000 renovating their home, but were shocked at how their home's low appraisal value turned out. They had a white woman pose as the homeowner, and suddenly the next appraisal came in at $500,000 higher. Turns out this was just one of the many examples highlighting housing discrimination in Black and brown communities across the country. Julian just returned from Washington, D.C., where there was a roundtable hearing to address the problem, a hearing that the Austins themselves were invited to attend. Julian, welcome to the show. Before we get to what happened in Washington, the figures that you have on home ownership and the barriers to it, they were eye-opening to me.
Yeah, good afternoon, Dion. They are truly eye-opening, and they say so much. As we know here in America, the largest way to build wealth in our country is through home ownership. And that's why the home ownership, the racial gap there is so important to look at. So whereas 74% of white Americans own their own home, that number is only 44% for Black Americans. So you can see why targeting this racial wealth gap is so important. And it's something that the Biden administration made very clear that it was something that they wanted to target, they wanted to fix, and look at the systemic and root causes that are keeping Black and brown families from owning their own home as a key focus of their administration. I want to share another number with you here, Dion, and this one is eye-opening. During 2020, 2021, we witnessed historically low interest rates when it comes to financing a mortgage on your home. That means you could save lots of money every month on that home mortgage, or perhaps lock in a lower interest rate as well, all things that would benefit the homeowners. But we're learning that the home mortgage refinance applications for certain lenders, there was a huge disparity when it comes to the race of the homeowners that were looking to refinance their property and who got those refinance applications approved. Wells Fargo, one of the biggest lenders right here, they declined more home mortgage refinance applications for Black homeowners than they approved, only 47%, but that number 72% for white homeowners. So clearly, even for those who are lucky enough to own their own home, they're still facing these systemic barriers when it comes to refinancing their home mortgage and securing lower monthly mortgage payments.
Wow, there is a lot of work to be done ahead. We'll get to that in just a moment. I do want to get to this. It's very important because some of your interview with Housing Secretary Marcia Fudge shows how deeply personal this is for her. Let's take a listen.
I literally live 2 houses from a white neighborhood. 2 houses.
A nicer lot, a larger lot.
Larger lot.
As you said, in your expert opinion, perhaps even a nicer home.
Correct.
And your home is valued for $25,000 less than 2 doors down from you.
Correct.
How does that happen to the HUD secretary?
You know, because I live in a Black neighborhood. So my neighborhood is one that is automatically considered to be not as good as a neighborhood that starts 2 doors from me. There is a bias, an inherent bias, that the appraisals have had for generations. This just didn't start. That we have been cheated out of what we were rightfully due. Look, I've been Black a long time, and so I clearly understand what it means to be lowballed. That means I'm going to offer you much less than you're worth, and I expect you to take it. Those days are done.
What a strong message. We only have about a minute left. But Julian, these housing discrimination issues, they are so incredibly deep-rooted in America. It's going to take time to reverse course, but there are some changes happening. Touch upon the legislation that's in the works.
Yeah, we do know that Congresswoman Maxine Waters of Southern California is proposing some legislation to systemically fix how the home appraisal process works and how it is governed. We also know that there will be a hearing that will be happening tomorrow. I want to get this right. This is the House Committee on Financial Services.
Hold that thought, Julian. Just 1 second. We're going to take a commercial break. We're going to continue the conversation on Facebook Live. Stay with us. Okay, we are in the break. Apologies to you, Julian. Didn't mean to cut you off, but I know that we are up against the time gods. I only know that we have about a minute and a half left. Can you finish your response to that question, but also give us an update on how the Austins are doing in their saga? Did they end up selling their house? What's the latest with them?
Absolutely. So again, this House Committee on Financial Services, this will be a big hearing where many of the key players in the industry will be testifying about how they believe that the industry, the appraisal industry, should be restructured. So that'll be a big piece that we expect to see. There were many levers that the 13 federal agencies and offices that were part of this HUD task force were able to pull to make some fixes immediately. But one thing that will have to go through Congress is reworking how the appraisal industry is actually governed. So that'll be something that we'll be watching closely tomorrow. As far as the Austin family, they are back from D.C. and I got to say, I am so incredibly proud of them and the bravery that they displayed in not only sharing their story with me, but to the world. And speaking before this huge interagency task force where they introduced Vice President Kamala Harris and spoke directly to the HUD Secretary and also Ambassador Susan Rice. So they did not sell their home. They are still in it, and they are fighting still that lowball appraisal to this day. They have filed a federal lawsuit against the appraiser in question and the appraisal management company. And most recently, the Department of Justice filed a statement of interest on the Austin family's behalf, saying that, yes, we believe this case should move forward. And yes, appraisers should and can be held liable, accountable, if there is some sort of a lowball appraisal that is, in fact, discriminatory. So much more to come on this story. But the Austins, they aren't going anywhere anytime soon.
They have a long road ahead, but certainly the journey on that has started. So I'm tremendously proud of them because without speaking out, I don't think they would have the amount of attention on this subject whatsoever. Not to mention your reporting has been steadfast and has been so dedicated for the past year or so. Congratulations to what you've accomplished so far. We look forward to your coverage tomorrow.
Thank you, Dion. We'll be covering it every step of the way.
Great. All right, we are returning on air in just a couple seconds. Here we go. And welcome back, and thank you so much for joining us for this interactive show, Getting Answers. We'll be here every day at 3 o'clock on air and live streaming on Facebook, answering your questions. World News Tonight with David Muir is coming up next, and then at 4 o'clock, ABC 7 News at 4. I'm Dion Lim. Have a great evening, and be sure to follow us on all social media platforms, ABC 7 News Bay Area. Also, I'm Dion Lim TV. Have a great day, and we'll see you back here at 4.